What's up, boys? I've noticed that it seems like pretty recently in the EDC community or everyday carry community that firearms have seemed to become kind of a point of contention. I wanted to talk about this for a while, and seeing it today kind of forced my hand into making a YouTube channel to talk about some of this stuff. But I've noticed that if you do post a firearm, people kind of get pissed off, rag on you, attack you. I see this a lot more on Reddit, to a lesser extent, maybe Instagram or something like that. But I've been into this stuff for a good 15 years, gone through many different phases of my own personal growth when it comes to EDC stuff, and I think people are focusing a little bit too much on the items. And while I understand that that's what it's kind of devolved into, EDC shouldn't be about one item, shouldn't be about a pistol, shouldn't be about a knife or a multi-tool, flashlight, whatever item that you seem to be focusing on. EDC is a system building architecture to properly outfit you, not only to get through your day, but to potentially deal with any issues or quite possibly what could be one of the worst days of your life. Now, I do primarily focus more on the life-saving or preventative side of EDC, so for me, I do carry a pistol. However, if you don't, or if you're maybe not aligned with a political or ideological belief that thinks that you should, well, then don't. But don't attack another person for doing something. And definitely don't attack a person because they choose to do something that you don't. Let people do what they do. So, with that little bit of a preface, I guess maybe I'll just kick it off by talking about my EDC. I think that any gun guy worth his salt, or who tries to take himself seriously as a influencer, YouTuber, content creator, at some juncture tackles the EDC video. I've seen a lot of them. I've definitely seen a lot of them. So I'd like to believe that for the most part, just the, cell phone, keys, wallet, knife, flashlight, pistol are all that are primarily ever focused on. But it really starts with clothing selection, whether or not you're properly dressed for your environment and your element. So for me, EDC is a top-down situation, starting with my head. I like to personally include a ball cap or a beanie, a toque if you will, something for not only heat retention, but UV coverage. Keeping your ears warm during the winter is nice, so sometimes a beanie or something to pull down over your ears is preferable. I'm also extremely pro sunglasses. Anytime that I leave the house, I want additional UV protection, so typically I'll leave with something like this. These are the Heat Wave Lazer Face. They're Z87 plus rated, which means they are impact rated. You might be able to see that they're a little scuffed up from general use, range use, etc. The main reason that I implore people, if you're leaving the house, have some sort of eye protection, not only from UV, but as you can see, this covers a large portion of my face. So something pops up and hits you in the eye, you're getting an additional layer of coverage. On top of that, not so much as a disguise or to, hide your intention, it gives you an additional layer of breaking your eye contact, not showing exactly where you're looking, things of this nature. Covering up the window to the soul, which would be your eyes, does not allow people to notice. Like, I could have my eyes closed right now, you would have no idea. And because I have a mirror-coated polarized lens, you cannot tell where I'm looking. Am I looking to my right, to my left? Am I on the edge of my periphery? Are we having direct eye-line contact right now? Are my eyes open? Are they closed? So I would definitely suggest a head covering, hat, and pair of sunglasses, not only for UV protection, but it does give you a little bit of anonymity in public. Working our way down, we've got proper dress and attire for your environment. Where I live, it's slightly colder at this time of year, so I'm going to dress in layers. I'm a undershirt type of person. Doesn't matter whether or not that's an A-frame, a sleeveless shirt. I wear that, a t-shirt, and then usually one over layer. So whether that is a sweater, a flannel, it could be a Henley underneath a t-shirt. I don't care how you approach your system, but for me, this works very well. The ability to shed layers is always easier than putting on a non-existent layer. In fact, it's impossible to put on something that you don't have. Unless you're off-boarding a sweater, flannel, a light jacket, something in a backpack, having the appropriate amount of layers for your environment the first time that you leave is much easier than leaving or, shivering because it's cold or because it started randomly raining. Dress appropriately for your environment. Additionally, properly selecting, based on what types of implements you intend on carrying with you, a good pair of pants, shorts. Do you need cargo pockets? Do you need something with rear magazine pouches? Do you need something in a certain weight, a certain color? Is it a department SOP? Are you law enforcement? Are you federal law enforcement? Situation dictates what type of gear that you need. I personally choose to go with a one-size-fits-all. These are Vertex Delta 2.1 LTs, the light fabric, so they're about 60% lighter than the standard Vertex Delta 2.1s. I like them because not only do they have additional pockets, it helps me spread out kind of my pocket junk, if you will, without having to double stack or put multiple things inside of one pocket. For the most part, everything lives in its own pocket in these pants. They're durable, they're relatively inexpensive, and they work very well. For footwear and shoe selection, personally, for socks, I prefer to wear merino wool every single day, year-round. I will sometimes, occasionally, I'll wear a non-merino wool sock. I prefer darn tough merino wool socks. They keep you cool during warmer months and warm during the cooler months. They wick sweat away from your feet. They're antimicrobial by nature. It's a great option. They are a little bit more expensive than like a 12 pack of Hanes, but it is on your feet and it's sweaty and smelly, so your mileage may vary, but I prefer them. So I tend to wear boots a lot more than I wear shoes. I know a lot of people prefer to wear a lightweight shoe. I've tried a bunch of different brands. Salomon's, Palladium, Vans has come out. Their XO Ultra Long Range series is a fantastic boot. That's what I'm currently using, but I have high top Vans and a couple of their newer things that I've tried over the course of however many years. So plan accordingly. Is it a wet environment, a snowy environment? Is it going to be super dry, super, humid? Choose carefully your options. After what felt like probably a decade of trying to find the right belt, I've ultimately landed on the Core Essentials, their standard 1.5 inch duty belt. Cobra belts work 100% fine. The infinite adjustability of their ratcheting system, not only do they have different colors and styles, different belt buckles, different belt keepers, this type of system is rigid enough to keep a firearm in place. If you do intend on carrying one, it'll keep most of your implements in one place, and it is absolutely worth the price. I know that there are other brands. Next Belt makes one that's very similar to this, but I'm pretty preferable to Core Essentials. So having a good belt is probably the most often overlooked piece when it comes to kit, or at least staging your kit properly. I know a lot of people prefer to have either no belt or something that's extremely light, but having the right belt for your setup is absolutely important. So, as well as all of the base components that I've just named. I also wear a timepiece or a watch. This is a Suunto Core. I believe it was a limited edition, one of their gray models. I don't remember the exact. Yeah, it's just a Suunto Core with a gray bezel. This is an aftermarket NATO strap that I got from County Com or Microtech, their Zulu NATO strap. I'm a pretty staunch proponent of having a timepiece. As a grown man, digging into my pocket to fish my phone out just to see what time it is, or asking somebody what time it is when I could easily just roll my wrist over and get that information myself is preferable. So on top of knowing what time it is, this watch in particular has a lot of additional features such as a compass, barometric pressure reading, altimeter. It has a storm alarm, which has come in handy a couple times. However, getting in and out of a vehicle or leaving your home after sitting in the AC, going out into an extremely muggy or hot climate can cause it to temporarily freak out. So have a timepiece. It's important. G-Shocks are a fantastic option. I've got a couple of Seikos. I've tried a bunch of different watches, but choose something according to your use case. Smartwatches are getting extremely powerful nowadays. Pick something that works for you. And while I'm not necessarily one for jewelry around my neck, I do keep a small seer compass, not necessarily for land navigation, but more of a statement piece or just for the meaning of it, you know, try and find north. I know it might sound stupid, but it's pretty cool. So, seer compass from Microtech, County Con. Alright, let's get into the good stuff. I know a lot of people might scoff at the idea of carrying a full-size multi-tool or maybe a medium-duty multi-tool if you're a Nut and Fancy fan. For me, I think it's one of the core items that a grown man or somebody who takes tasks seriously, and while I might not personally be able to tighten screws, bolts, and fasteners by hand or cut firewood or intricate cutting tasks with my hands, with this I can. So this is a clip and carry Kydex holster. I got this in Smoky Mountain Knife Works in Tennessee when I was visiting a friend for their wedding. And in it, I have a two-tone special Leatherman Wave. This isn't the Plus. This is the old one that has the non-replaceable cutting jaws. I'm not going to go over every little intricate detail of these things, but you know, saw blade, file, primary blade, screwdriver, micro mini driver, scissors, stuff like that. You can handle most small tasks with this that you would need either a toolbox or large device for. I've carried a Leatherman for pushing 13, 14 years now. I think the Wave is kind of the perfect middleman. It's kind of the Glock 19 of multi-tools. You know, people who say if it can do a couple things well, it can't do one thing right. I would say that this is probably an exception to that adage. This knife gets probably 70 to 80% of my box cutting or opening use. Have an appropriate tool for your mission set. It holds it pretty tight. There's a good positive contact. If I shake it violently, it might fall out of there, but other than that, it's a great way to carry a full-size multi-tool. In addition to a multi-tool, I'm also a person who carries a full-size knife or a pocket knife, a folding pocket knife. Tried a bunch of different brands. I started carrying a knife when I was a child in the Scouts, I believe. 8 or 9 years old. First time I ever got stitches was because of a Swiss Army knife. Ever since I was a child, I've not stopped carrying a folding knife when legally able to. I've tried multiple different brands, worked my way from a Swiss Army knife up to CRKT, went from a CRKT to a crappy Walmart special Spyderco to Benchmade to better Spydercos to high-end knives. After purchasing this in 2018, pretty much stopped buying folding knives, not because of its price, but kind of just hits all the boxes for me. This is the Rick Hinderer XM18 3-inch. This is a titanium G10 model in a working finish. Integral frame lock, you know, flipper, and the blade steel is 20 CV. I've wanted one of these for a really, really long time. I think this is a Gen 5. I can't remember whether or not this is a 5 or a 6, but I've wanted a Chris Reeves Unwilling as well for a really long time, and primarily the reason that I went with this over the Unwilling, you know, it's kind of in the same ballpark price range between $400 and $500. The main reason that I chose this knife, though, not only because of the pivot and the steel, but primarily because of the size and the steel. I think 20 CV, you know, there's that trinity of steel, Carpenter 204P, M390, and 20 CV. I think of those three steels, M390 is my favorite, but 20 CV performs so closely that it was kind of a no-brainer. I've tried many different knives, and as I said, once I picked this thing up, I kind of stopped carrying them. I will rotate it out occasionally, but since I purchased this in 2018, I pretty much have had 100% uptime in my pocket. I think having a pocket knife is important if you do anything that requires you to cut for a large percentage of your day. That being said, yes, I did say my Leatherman gets a lot of my cutting tasks, but this thing has performed extremely, extremely well, and in that time period, I've only had to sharpen it, like truly sharpen it, you know, under 10 times. So usually I'll just strop it and it'll spring back to life. Folding knife. I'm going to preface this next part by saying I understand that people kind of scoff at people who carry 2 knives. I carry 3, but there's a reason why I carry 3. So, in my back right pocket, I carry some Microtech Troodon. It has an L-Max steel. In a distressed gray finish. So, pretty much not the only reason, but primary reason outside of the carbide glass breaker. The main reason that I carry this knife is in the instance that I am either completely out of ammunition or am caught in a choke or a grab from the rear and I cannot access my pistol. This is strictly for fighting. I don't open Amazon boxes. I'm not cutting, thread or weird little things around the house. This knife is a combat only knife. Now, saying that, anybody with a knife fighting background, martial arts background, or even a gunfighting background probably would say that you definitely don't want to be going around getting into knife fights. And though I may not be an expert on the subject, I'm also going to parrot that. You don't want to get into a knife fight. I don't want to get into a knife fight. And in a thought experiment / intellectual exercise type of situation, I would much rather get into a gunfight than a knife fight. And I don't want to get into either of those. I don't even want to get into a regular fist fight. I would much rather get out of there. But if I'm forced into the situation, this knife is on my person strictly for that situation, or if I need to break a window. It can also be used to cut a seatbelt. My arm is trapped or pinned. If I'm in a car accident, I can break a window with it. This has a lot more utility than maybe a regular folding knife, deployed with either hand, single-handedly, easily, and they're legal to own. They're just fun to play with. So, yes, I understand that it's an expensive knife and it might be illegal in your area, but it's not in mine, and I definitely love their knives. This is a great pairing. The Microtech Troodon and the Hinderer, fantastic. So, check them out if you haven't. And much like my pocket knife or multi-tool decisions, I like to have parity in my system, or redundancy, as I've said. I like to have a non-pistol mounted light fighting option, as well as a general or smaller utility. So for primary illumination, I've selected the Modlite PLH V2 Slim with the Thyrm Switchback 2.0. This is the Sage Green, Sage OD Green edition, as well as I've placed a small Ranger band on the front bezel of this for a couple reasons. I'll kind of go over this package. The main reason that I put the Ranger band on this, not only as a bumper so it doesn't kind of knock into my phone while this is clipped in my pants pocket in the front left, but the Ranger band also gives a little bit of added grip on the inside of my pocket that keeps it from moving around. So it kind of doubles up, as well as gives me a little bit, if my hands are wet or it's cold, a little bit of additional grip so I can unscrew this, take the battery in, or charge it, or do whatever I have to do. The main reason I went with this package, primarily I like the 18650 cell size for runtime. Doesn't really matter what the light is. I'm preferable to the Thyrm Switchback on any platform. Because of this karambit style ring, I can put this in my hand and make a fighting grip with it, or use it in this fashion, and then if necessary, roll it forward and create a full fighting grip with my pistol. I'm not sacrificing anything. I still have illumination here, and I can still access any additional illumination on the firearm. Alternatively, if you were just walking through a photopic or scotopic, to use Aaron's terminology, environment, or a low light or low threshold of light, this can be used, you're walking your dog, you're walking through a parking lot, you're taking groceries out of your vehicle, and you're heading into your house. You can still use this in a manner where you're still grasping things. You can still perform a reload with it from a side magazine pouch if necessary. You can strike with it. You can offboard, stretch it away from yourself. You can use it here, forward, here. This is a great option for primary fighting illumination, and I would definitely suggest people to check Modlite out. And originally I've carried this for quite some time. Still the PLH V2, but with the original generation style of head. I never had just the standard PLH before they went to the V2, but I've got like a low serial Gen 1 head, a couple Gen 1 heads, and then an OKW. Again, you don't have to have the Modlite. I've also tried it on a couple of different lights, but my first step into it was with these Convoys. This is a Convoy S2 and a Convoy S2 Plus. I've tried it with single and triple Mitara mods. it's extremely useful to have forward-facing light and still be able to access a pistol. I think the main reason that I prefer this setup is it adds a pocket clip to a light that didn't have a pocket clip and also allows you to go hands-free. So the Thyrm Switchback is one of my favorite add-ons for a flashlight. And I just typically run Samsung 30Qs or the Sony VTC6A or the Sony VTC7. Again, building redundancy in the system. Typically, if I have a full-size fighting flashlight in my front left, I'll keep something on my belt. Pain in the ass to get off. In this little Amazon special belt sheath, not sure if these are meant for batons or some sort of a secondary flashlight system, but I like to carry the Emisar DW4. This is the Wangle, as the kids call it. This is in a 18650 configuration, but they also come in 18500 and 18350 cell sizes. So it has a magnetic tail cap, deep pocket carry clip, illuminated button, multi-emitter forward facing, as well as additional auxiliary LEDs. Just a great performance option that isn't super tactical. The main reason I like this is, on top of being forward facing, gives you old school military vibe meets Last of Us, but modern. You can reverse this pocket clip. It's an extremely powerful package for the amount of money. These are anywhere from $50 to $70 on most days, so I can run this on my belt at the front of my body in a 12 o'clock position and have forward-facing hands-free light with a magnetic base. I can stick it to something ferrous and have area light. I usually keep this on momentary because that's how I use it. Pull it out and momentarily hold it, kind of like the Modlite. So for not a lot of money, you can get a ridiculous amount of output. I'm not going to go into super granular detail about output and throw. A lot of these numbers are dependent on the cells that you use. So the Emisar DW4 18650. So I'm a guy who has kind of struggled with key ring setups in the past. I've tried a bunch of different aviator rings, belt clips, belt loop clips, on body, off body, multiple different key organizers. Just I've spent a ridiculous amount of time in the last 15 years trying to optimize how I carry my keys, and current system seems to be, as of the last couple of years, kind of the apex of that climb. So on my belt, I keep a small titanium clip, essentially a gated clip. I'm not exactly sure the name or the brand. I'll overlay a picture of it over me talking here. Most people just have their car key fob or car keys, their house key, their work key, whatever, and then all this stuff together and, hang it from their ignition. Well, I didn't want to do that. That's partially why I struggled for so long. I needed some of these things, or I wanted to have some of these things at all times, but I didn't want to hang it from my ignition and cause damage to my ignition. Kind of got a little heavy with some of this stuff. So what I ended up ultimately deciding was to separate my car key and fob, my house key, my work key, my PO box key, and then all of these items separately. So I'll just give you a little rundown of the Gizmo Ring first, and then we'll move on. I've got a Keybar single bit holder with a 𝚂𝚘𝚋𝚜𝚌 number 2 Phillips bit in it. I don't know if they make these anymore. It's been a couple of years. Vault-Tec key, Vault-Tec safe key, tool cabinet key. This is a Samsung 256 gig USB 3.1 flash drive, jump drive, thumb drive, whatever you want to call it. Portable applications, pictures, all that kind of stuff. Just backups. It's the LumenTop Frog 600 lumen micro keychain flashlight. Comes in a couple different battery sizes. I think its standard is a 10180, but you can get a 10440, which is kind of a lithium equivalent of a AAA. So a lot of output, but short runtime. Got a couple of these glow-in-the-dark tabs. These are from Microtech, just for ID if I drop it or lose it during the night. And then I'm not exactly sure of the name. I'm pretty sure this is called the InCharge 6, but this is just a short magnetic USB cable. Cool part about this, and this thing is coming clutch, but the cool part about this is you can do USB A to USB C, you take this off, you do USB-C to USB-C, and then same thing on this side. If you take this off, it has a lightning and micro USB connector, kind of like combo dealy. I don't use that as much, so I just put a little bit of electrical tape on here, but it does come in handy, so I can peel it off quickly and use it if necessary. A lot of people carry around a cell phone, but don't have any way to charge it, or they'll carry a cell phone and maybe a small little battery bank, but then don't have a cable. This has come in handy way more times than I can count, and as you can see, the finish it's beat up. Like, this thing gets used and abused, and because it's magnetic, it just stays on here. I've never lost it, and going on a couple years strong with it, so in charge 6, I believe. On top of putting all my gizmos on a little aircraft cable, so I'm not going to show the key fob, but this is a Victos spring lock. This is a Victos spring lock in multicam black with a Keybar magnet, and my keys would just connect to this. My vehicle key would just connect to this, and then I hang it off my belt loop and put it in my back pocket. Not a lot to say about it, but this is a great little option if you're just hanging your keys and putting it in your pocket. And as I've stated, I separated my home key, work key, and P.O. box key from my vehicle key. That way, if I get locked out of my house, I can always get back into my vehicle, get a spare house key. If I get locked out of my vehicle, I can get back into my house, get my spare vehicle key, or if I, for some odd reason, forget both of my house and my vehicle key, I can use my phone and unlock my vehicle. So it's kind of a 3-way redundant system. I've got 4 keys in here. I'm not going to show you them, but I've got 4 keys. So, okay. There's probably a large portion of people who are like, hey, shut up and get to the gun. So I'm going to get to the gun.
Woo! Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about. Woo!
But I just wanted to build up to it. This is my Trex Arms Sidecar 2.0 in multicam black with their single pistol magazine attachment on the side. This holster is intended to be an AIWB holster, but because of the spine system, you can also purchase it essentially without this side magazine carrier. This clip will be here, and you could run it anywhere from 3 to 5 o'clock, but personally choose to run it with the additional magazine attachment, the pistol magazine attachment. You can also get a rifle magazine attachment, a subgun magazine attachment, handcuff, tourniquet. I think they even make a 3D printable jig that you can essentially attach anything that they make that's compatible with the spine system. So if you want to, run this off to the side, I guess you could get a left-handed draw side pistol magazine attachment and do some weird crossbody thing, but I don't know why you would do that. Just purchase a holster that does what it's intended to. So I've only had this particular holster for about 2-3 weeks, but previous to owning this, I had a Sidecar 1.0, almost the exact same setup, except it didn't have the light bearing or light attachment, if you will. It was a quick ship wolf gray one that I bought in October, November of 2018. So I've had a Sidecar for a really long time, and the only reason I ended up upgrading to the 2.0 was after all that time, the backside of the rear kydex started splitting along the seam. So I didn't know if I was going to like this, primarily because of the spine system. I thought it was going to kind of grab hair and pull on it, but it's been great, honestly. And upgrading to include this TLR7, the original model with the side buttons, was kind of a no-brainer. I thought it would kind of interfere or dig into my leg or hip or whatnot, but I can't even honestly tell that there's a weapon laid on this of this size. So inside of this, it's a Generation 5 Glock 45 9mm with a Zev Duty Glock 19 cut slide, a Holosun 507C V2, not the X2, it's got the old double stack side button, and a metal Zev magazine release. Everything else about this is stock trigger, stock disconnector, stock magazine, stock barrel. In the magazines, I've got either, I think it's 124 grain Federal HSTs in this, and then 124 grain Federal HSTs in this. Is Glock 17 mag, but it has a OEM +2 extension. So I like to keep it pretty simple. I've tried, super tuned out, every part replaced race guns. I've got a couple different setups that I carried, but I'm a pretty big guy. I've got large to extra large size hands, and I can get away carrying a full frame pistol. This gun also has a TLR7, the non-A, the non-flex model, so it's got the side buttons, but I don't really care. I bought it before that came out, and I'm not going to upgrade just because it's the new thing. So if you want to send me one, I'll take it from you and I'll review it, but for right now, this works fine. I like the intermediary kind of 19 style slide with a 17 style grip, strictly just for comfort. But I did carry a Glock 17 with an X300U and a Modlite on it for quite some time. So I understand there are many different kinds of sidecar style holsters. I've tried a couple of them, but ultimately I fell in love with the sidecar first. And I know Lucas and Trex Arms kind of was the original progenitor of the sidecar. In fact, the reason they're called sidecars is because of this holster. I'm not saying the original is better, but I prefer it. So that is my sidecar and everyday carry pistol. So occasionally, if I was going to an area that wasn't, maybe not non-permissive, but let's say less than permissive, somewhere that's not my original area code, I would plus up and add a third mag. I know that seems ridiculous, but if I'm going to an area that has a higher crime rate and the laws allow it, I'm going to take extra ammunition. So I kind of did this two different ways. One, I would just carry an extra mag in the vehicle or a backpack, but then if I wanted to put it on my person, I used to use the Trex Arms Mars carrier with the tech lock on it. It's just a black one. And this works great, but it is a little thick. So when I upgraded and got the 2.0, I also picked up one of their Ironside magazine holsters, which I'm going to flash an image of over me talking right now. And in that, I carry a Glock 17 magazine. This is just a Gen 4 mag with a Jagerworks +5. And I usually, again, carry either 124 grain Speer Gold Dot or 124 grain Federal HSTs in this. This is just an extended mag, that's it. And if I'm carrying extra ammo, usually I'll add a less or non-lethal option. I like POM OC spray. There's a couple different ways to go about doing it. This is just a quick disconnect on a belt mount. Stick this in your pocket, and then they've got a model with a built-in pocket clip, essentially. I like POM OC. They're legal in, I'm pretty sure, every state. Saber Red's good stuff too, so pick something according to your need. But if I'm going extra lethal, I want to have a non-lethal or less than lethal option as well. And I can't really show you my phone because I'm currently filming with it, and I'm an Android guy, so I've got a Google Pixel 6 Pro in black. It's a 128 gig. I also pay for additional storage through Google Drive. I personally prefer Android. I don't care what you like, use what you like. Having a communication device, well, I guess I don't really need to explain why you should have a primary communication device, but 15, 20 years ago, I'd have killed for something like this instead of having to carry a phone, an MP3 player, a camera, a video camera, all that stuff independently, and essentially paying the price for all the best parts of those things in one package. So that's my phone, the Google Pixel 6 Pro. And obviously I've got a wallet and other odds and ends. I'm not going to show you my wallet and go over all that. It's kind of boring, but I've tried a couple different wallets in the past. ESSTAC is the one that I currently use. I've tried the Magpuls. I've tried the CountyCom Microtech NYLA wallet, which is my favorite wallet I've ever used, but they don't make it anymore. I've tried their Dyneema card holders as well. Those are great. That being said, that's pretty much the rundown of all my gear. I hate to see the way the EDC stuff has gone, as it's a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. I get it, it's the internet, people are going to have arguments, people are going to say you're an idiot for doing this or you're an idiot for doing that. But I think stressing the point of maximizing your human potential and taking the things that you need to get your job or do any tasks that might pop up throughout the day is the end point of the reason behind EDC, and I want to stress that. My system works for me. It's taken many years to get to this point, and I kind of wanted to show it off as well as talk about these points. So that's pretty much my first YouTube video, guys. I definitely appreciate you dealing with me stumbling and pausing and having weird you know, verbal tics and whatnot. I'm trying to do this whole YouTube thing and at least try. It's been a personal goal for a long time to at least start a YouTube channel. So I apologize in advance for all of the learning that comes with that. And who knows, maybe nobody even watches this, but I felt compelled, after seeing a couple posts, I felt compelled to make a video on the point. So, alright guys, that's pretty much it. Catch you guys around. Peace.